Shanta, what does the ideal programme at the Lincoln Centre look like in a decade? In 10 years' time, what do you think we'll be seeing in your different venues?
Well, that's such a fascinating question. I mean, I think the answer is I have no idea. And as we think about what we want and need out of our live performance, out of being together, that's going to constantly change. But some things will also stay the same, which is that it's important for us to see one another and be seen. It's important for us to feel and be moved together. It's important for us to remember that we are actually responsible to one another.
Shanta, the Lincoln Centre has the Met, the Philharmonic, the City Ballet. How do you see its role within the New York culture scene?
We think of ourselves as being, of course, we have one of the biggest platforms in the world. So we're both responsible for making sure that we have space for artists from around the world creating their best work in every form. So, of course, the ballet, the opera, we've got the Philharmonic, we have Juilliard, one of the great academic institutions focused on art creation. But we also are responsible for platforming the voices of artists that are working in new fields, in fields that aren't represented by those institutions as well. So things like salsa, hip hop, and this intersection of art and well-being, art and technology, contemporary dance. And so we think of Lincoln Center as really being a playground for artists and audiences to meet one another.
I mean, it's a dream job, but quite a difficult one because you've got this tremendous historical legacy that you want to balance with bringing in things that are fresh and new and exciting and reflect the culture.
Yeah, well, I think this historical legacy is built on continuously reinventing itself, always being in touch with the artists of today. And of course, those artists are changing all the time. The mediums are changing. But the legacy of Lincoln Center lives in really bringing the best from around the world right now. And the artists that are animating, of course, these forms from hundreds of years ago, but also the artists that are creating new forms in real time.
So, when you started the job, you said you wanted to bring in more popular and world music. What was the response to that?
Lincoln Center actually has an incredible legacy of bringing music from around the world and popular music and platforming it at the same time. So I think the response has been incredible. We're meeting people that have never stepped foot onto the Lincoln Center campus before, but we're also meeting folks who have been at Lincoln Center their whole life and are encountering new forms and new ideas. And so that's actually the great privilege and joy of this work, is that you can constantly be expansive around who is welcome at this place that looms so large, I think, in the imagination. And we get to say that it is really for every New Yorker, but really for anyone coming into the city. And then you can imagine the extension there is that the arts are for everyone. It's not just this place. It's really that art making, art creation, and art experience is really a necessity for human thriving, and that it's available to everyone.
The idea of art being accessible is fantastic. And when I came to see you at the Lincoln Center a few months ago, I loved the buzz of everything you created. There were students, there were so many performing art schools there and high schools. It seemed this idea of high art was not divorced from what the people want.
Of course, and that has never been the case. I think thinking about how we decide what art is for which people is outdated and frankly doesn't serve anyone. And so really trying to break down all of those barriers and say, of course, if your experience with music is popular music, that doesn't mean that opera is not for you, that the Philharmonic is not going to immediately move you. And so we really try to create these pathways for audiences to find their way into art of all kinds, and really show them that there's really this ability to find yourself within an artist's work and vision is possible, and to separate what kind of art is available to you, I think is really does no one a service. We always start with an artist, and we generally start with an artist vision, and we think of artists as really being, out there in the world noticing and taking in all of these inputs that all of us walk through our days and move through the world, but we have our own objectives and ways of looking. And artists are really looking at the world in a different way and thinking about what is it teaching us? How can we interrupt it? How can we reflect ourselves within it in a way that we are not seeing? And so we start with the artists that we know are moving us forward or that are thinking about the world maybe differently, and then ask them what they need, what we can provide to get that vision in front of the audience that they want to find as well. And so we often think of our work as, if we can get an artist into relationship with the audience that they're seeking, that's our job. And so the program creation really starts from that. What do we need to be able to put those two pieces together?
When the national mood shifts, either politically or culturally, how quickly can a program respond? Or should it respond?
Well, again, I think artists are always leading the way and are often 10 steps ahead of where the rest of us are perhaps reading today's news. An artist is creating work that is for tomorrow. And so I think if we can really meaningfully engage with an artist and follow them in the way that their art is leading them, then often we're ahead of what a national sentiment might be and are there to meet an audience in the right way. And that it requires an enormous amount of trust in an artist community. But again, that is the community that we are serving, and really trusting that they are here to teach us something about the world as it is, but also the world as it can be. And so I never worry about being behind. Often, I think we have to do the job of being ahead of the narrative and making sure that we have the right steps along the way for both our audiences, our press, the general world, to make sure that they can find the work in a way that supports it.
Do you feel the pressure to keep up with the rapid pace of the world? I mean, it often feels like things are shifting every day.
The world is changing at a rapid pace, as we all know. And so I think the thing that has been really important, and particularly I think in the artists, when we think about, I'll speak a little bit about how our artists that are working with technology in particular, and we see the world that AI and how these things are showing up in our lives every day in a way that we are not even inviting in necessarily, but all of a sudden there's a new tool, a new way of working. And um and the artists that we're working with, particularly in our Collider program, which is really working with these artists at the forefront of art and technology, they're telling us a story about how to look at AI, how to know that AI has gaps in the way that it's created, and who it's created for. And so just having a set of questions that we're asking ourselves when we intersect with new technology and saying, okay, where is this helping me? Where is this maybe not reflecting my voice? Maybe it's reflecting a voice that is not my own. And I think that's a really fascinating thing that I've been thinking about, we work with Stephanie Dinkins and Rashad Newsom, and they're really questioning this idea of the source of AI and whose voice, and how can we think about it actually creating from a voice of, being empowered by Black feminist theory instead of what it may be powered by currently, and how do we insert our humanity against all odds in using technology. And I think that's a thing that I'm thinking about every day, as the world changes, but as my actual, real lived reality is shifting every day. How can I remember my own humanity as it moves through this technology?
Tell me a little bit more specifically about the kind of work that your Collider program is coming up with.
Yeah, so we have this amazing cohort of artists who are, working at the cutting edge of art and technology. And the basis of the program is really that we offer some resources for these artists, but also offer them the cohort of one another, to really think about how can they share technology with one another, and then how can they, as a group of artists, really teach the field of performing arts something new about how to move into a new space. We have these beautiful buildings, we have all of these spaces built for live performance, a very particular kind of live performance. And so these artists are also having us really think about what are the spaces that are appropriate and what are the tools we need to be able to support the work of the future. So that's been really fascinating. And these artists, are working in so many different ways in gaming technology and technology that takes, plants and makes them into musical instruments and reminds us that we all have energy moving through us. Cynthia Chen has this piece where when you touch this work, it creates this new kind of fabric that she's made. It animates it, but if you are holding the hand of somebody else who's also touching the work, it creates these completely different shapes. So creating these circuits of our own human um, electricity and circuitry that's matching this visual art that's being created in real time. So that's one example. um, James Sprague, who's working in 4D sound. So you enter into a room and you feel the sound waves affecting you in all of these different ways, but also working with steel pan drumming and creating this beautiful new composition that is truly envelops you as you walk into the space. And it's just a very different kind of experience than walking into a typical concert hall. Um, and it's one that kind of, yeah, it just makes you question how you're moving through the world with sound all of the time, and that it's coming from all of these different directions. But to control that is a very powerful new art form that he's really creating. And it's remarkable. So again, it's all these kind of ways that you sort of begin to question your own reality and the technology that you're intersecting with all the time. And also, art making and art creation and art sharing is one of our most dependable technologies across time. So how do we use that technology in our modern age?
As technology advances, and you're using it in so many different ways, do you think our existing definitions of art will still remain?
It's really, I think art is, obviously constantly evolving and evolving for the times. If it's, Mozart performing chamber works in these beautiful churches in Europe, versus people creating rave music for dance halls, and music and art are all constantly adapting. And actually that's probably the best definition of art in general, is that it's an ever evolving technology, and it's a technology for communication, it's a technology that moves us, it's a technology that unites us. And live performance is one of those deeply meaningful and useful tools for all of us to find ourselves.
Shanta, what does the ideal programme at the Lincoln Centre look like in a decade? In 10 years, what do you think we'll be seeing?
Well, that's such a fascinating question. I mean, I think the answer is I have no idea. and and I can only hope that we're moving at the speed that our artists are able to create. And I think, cities are changing, our lives are changing. We have this beautiful new performance park actually that we're building, that we're just breaking ground on campus, that is going to be this world-class outdoor theatrical venue, but also a garden. And I think as we think about what we want and need out of our live performance, out of being together, that's going to constantly change. But some things will also stay the same, which is that it's important for us to see one another and be seen. It's important for us to feel and be moved together. It's important for us to remember that we are actually responsible to one another. And I'm hopeful that our performance spaces will continue to accommodate that we'll have room for everyone to come in and feel those same things together, and so that we can move together towards a different kind of future, that we really can imagine these worlds together that we're all participating in. I mean, just thinking about what is human,
Yeah.
what is it that makes us human? And I think that's really probably the most important question of right now, of thinking about, as all of these, humanoid, human-like things, what is it actually that makes us unique to ourselves, in and of ourselves? And is that possible to take outside of ourselves? And is that what we should be doing? Is that yeah, how do we hold on to what makes us uniquely ourselves, and at the same time explore how to make sure this technology is humane in a way?
Shanta Thake, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.